You're listening to Let's Talk episode 65, brought to you by the StarQuest Production Network. Howdy, Father Corey Stika. Welcome to Let's Talk, our SQPN community podcast. Glad you can join us. We've got kind of a special episode here because we're reaching across a little bit of water. There's a little bit distance between me and my three panelists this week. I'm very privileged, and it really is a privilege. I've been looking forward to this episode to have the Catholics from Oz visiting with us. How's it going, guys?
Yeah, it's good.
We're great, Father.
G'day, Father.
Thank you for having us.
What? Oh, we're glad to have you. Glad to have you here. And, of course, those who have listened to podcast to the Let's Talk know I've promoted the Catholics of Oz podcast and the work you guys do. And I know you guys have promoted us as well, because I've heard you give us a call out once in a while, too. But for those who haven't...
One of the things we like hearing, Father, we love hearing it when you call us Secrets of Oz.
Oh, Secrets of Oz. There you go. I'm so used to doing all the secret shows. I probably have done that a few times. So, why don't you guys introduce yourselves for those who haven't listened to the Catholics of Oz podcast?
Sure. I guess I'll jump in first, maybe.
Sure.
My name is Lindsay. I'm the host of Catholics of Oz. I'm joined by Caroline, who's my sister, and Jared, who's my brother-in-law. So we all know each other very well. But yeah, basically, we started Catholics of Oz at the start of this year after hearing Dom's call for more podcasts on SQPN. But basically, I'm a father of two. I've got a 10-year-old and a 1-year-old, so they're very well spaced apart, these kids. Obviously from Australia. I'm a high school teacher. I teach the senior levels, year 10, 11, and 12. And that's pretty much me, I guess. Caroline, how about yourself?
Yeah, well, I am a mother of two children. I have Frankie and Harry. Harry just turned 5 years old, and Frankie will be 8 years old in December. I guess I have a background in science, and that's why I like to talk about science on our podcast, especially space. And I work in environmental science, part-time as well. So, and I really enjoy being on our podcast, Catholics of Oz, talking with Jerry and Lindsay and, getting things off our chest and hoping that people listen. So yeah, that's me.
Very good.
Very good. And I'm the third one, Jerry, in the sidecar. I suppose my unique take is a humour take. I can't help it. I'll try not to interrupt when people say something. My eyes will light up and I'll go, no, don't say anything. But I'm a father of two. That's possibly why. So out come the dad jokes. My kids are 7 and 4, so just behind Caroline. I've got the only daughter out of all of us. So we've all got 2 kids. I've got the only daughter. They've each got 2 sons. So my background really is in numbers. I'm an accountant, and I've trained to be a financial planner, and I'm training to be an auditor, and I just can't get away from the numbers, really. Even back in primary school, apparently, I knew all my timetables, so there's your calling right there. I've been doing podcasting with these guys. 4 or 5 years now, and obviously, started Catholics of Oz on the SQPN network this year. Whoop, and the cat will introduce herself next.
And the cat.
Just got a cat pop up in front of our Skype screens.
Yes, I'm also a cat
Well, I've heard cat videos are viral, so that might make this podcast go really well.
There he goes. We should be recording the video for that. You always got to have the cat.
Yes.
No. Well, so you guys been doing some podcasting before you came to SQPN, correct?
Yeah. I guess should we maybe go into the story about how it all started?
Please.
Yeah. I always say it was Caroline's fault.
Sorry.
So Caroline, I guess maybe we should throw it over to you and get you to start the story.
So Lindsay and I had been listening to SQPN for a long time, and I think it started when we were listening to Father Roderick von Hogan and his various podcasts, and we really enjoyed listening to that. And we thought, wow, there's a priest who's podcasting, and he talks about geek things that we enjoy and science and, you know, everything else. And that's so refreshing. You know, we're really inspired by him. And so then he came to do some talks. Was it the C and I get the acronym?
The Catholic New Media
right.
Conference in
Melbourne.
Melbourne.
And he was also doing a talk for a bunch of, you know, youth, like, well, we considered ourselves youth at the time. So we went to see him speak, and we were really like, just after, you know, we were starstruck, you know, and then after hearing him speak, you know, Lindsay and I often have chats on our own, and then we thought, you know what, we should do a podcast. And so we thought, yeah, Lindsay agreed, yeah, we should do a podcast. And and then we got Jared on board with us, and we started, you know, trying to figure out how to do this podcasting thing. And we managed to do some episodes, and we kind of found our feet and got our structure going. And I had to do some science on there, obviously, you know, and, you know, we all talk about what, you know, our interests, you know, the Catholic Church and other things, you know, geekery and things as well, movies and, you know, video games and whatever else. And then the one day an SQPN mailing, you know, email came out, and it said, you know, if you've got an interesting podcast, you know, something that may fit in with, you know, the SQPN, you know, aims and goals, you know, perhaps, you know, send us, you know, an email and an outline, and, you know, we'll consider you. And Lindsay, I called him up, I said to him, Lindsay, this is our chance, you know, mate, do you think they'll like us? Maybe we could join up with them, you know? And I said, you send the letter. So Lindsay sent an email off to Dom, and Dom liked us, and here we are today, you know, and we're so excited, we're so thrilled. We're still excited about being part of the network. So it's just been really great.
Yeah, I'll just jump in as well, because we were hearing, you know, podcasts of these people. You know, here's Don Bettinelli talking about Star Wars. Here's Father Corey talking about this, and you know, here's Jimmy Akin talking about Our Mysterious World and Star Trek and all these other things as well. And so it's this strange feeling to think that we're producing a podcast. Here we are, us ordinary three who are just regular Catholics, you know, living our lives and, you know, going to work and raising kids and all that. And we get to do this wonderful thing where we get to share a podcast with people, not just in Australia, but also in the United States and the other places where SQPN reaches as well. And alongside, you know, such experienced people such as yourselves. You know, when we started, we were very experimental in what we were doing with our first podcast, and because I'm trying to make it sound better than it was. So, for example, our early efforts were all of us sitting around one, you know, dingy little microphone talking into it. You know, we would record sound effects by putting our iPhone up to the microphone, and, you know, all these things that you probably don't do when you're podcasting. So, you know, but it was, I guess it was good for us to feel our way around, because in that story that Caroline was telling, I actually went to a second CNMC that was the year after the first one in Melbourne. It was in Sydney, so interstate. And they had Greg and Jennifer Willits there, also, you know, SQPN founders as well. And it was good because I got to speak to Greg, you know, personally, and just have a chat with him and tell him what we were doing, and then him telling me that, you know, I'm doing it all wrong, but you know, but politely, you know, politely as well. But but it was great because his constructive criticism was really good. You know, I remember at one stage when I wrote to him and said, you know, could you have a listen to one of our episodes and tell us what you think? And I said, you know, what we do is we sit around one microphone and we record. And his reply was, you know, almost capital letters, exclamation marks, you sit around one mic. So, yeah. But it was great. And from there, we got advice from him. And then obviously joining SQPN, Dom has had this great list of things to do for how to prepare a podcast. And I've had a chat with him on our Slack channel, just asking questions and getting things, some advice from him. And it's been really good because now we actually sound all right as opposed to how we might have sounded in the past.
Well, I should add a disclaimer too, is as part of kind of to pull the curtain back a little bit, when we get a request for a new podcast, it's brought to the SQPN board. It's it's not just Dom's decision, but the board as well. So it was over a year ago. It was about a year ago when we got your pilot episode of Catholics of Oz.
Right.
And I remember I was still jogging at the time, which long story why that's not happening right now. But I remember jogging and listening to you guys for the initial episode, going, "Oh, this is kind of interesting. I might like this one." Because we were able to give some of the feedback you got. Obviously, was from Dom, who's got a lot of experience. And I laughed when you talk about professionals and know what you're doing. It's like, I still don't know what I'm doing with podcasting, but I'm somehow getting a podcast out every week or so. But it's good though that you're able to come on and we learn off each other. And that's the nice thing about SQPN is we really do learn off each other. Some of the tricks that I'm doing are stuff I learned from Dom. How I record the episodes and how I edit the episodes are tricks I learned from Dom. And it's kind of the same thing, I think, with the stuff you do.
Yeah, it's really helpful just getting that technical advice, because I think sometimes you start to doubt yourself and your ability if you haven't got the technical things sorted out. So getting that advice that we've had has been a real confidence boost for us, because what we really want to do is sit down and produce some really good Catholic content rather than worrying about the back ends and the microphones working and the sound quality and all those other things. Yeah. Jerry, can I maybe get you involved really quickly? And why don't you tell us about how you kind of started out with us? Because I think it was that we invited you on and we ended up doing an episode that was an hour and a half long at one stage. another newbie mistake, but
revisiting the early days. Yeah, so obviously with what's been said so far, Lindsay and Caroline were really the drivers behind it, really, from the influence of listening and being involved in the early days in SQPN. I sort of came on board is probably I think the third episode of our original show. You guys came up with the idea of sort of, sitting around almost like a campfire around the microphone and all talking about different things, having a subject each just for giving it some variety. And so I came on board then and talked about finance, I think. I think it was around tax time or something like that. So, it was ideas about tax, which is primarily what I do. And so I did that, and I thought this is actually quite interesting and fun. I've never sort of thought that I would be interested in talking on a microphone to people. I've never been an outgoing person. I've never really relished the spotlight, but doing that show, I just with you guys, I kind of enjoyed it. And I thought, well, I wouldn't mind doing it again. And you guys are like, yeah, sure, come on again. And the next episode that you guys wanted to do after that was about the time where Caroline was falling pregnant with Harry. So suddenly Lindsay didn't have a co-host.
Yes.
and so he was even more pleased that I was, myself along with our other friend Lino, were willing to step in and sort of talk. So we, as you said, we wandered through episodes, sort of meandered through them and tried to make a fist of it. We had people listening, getting feedback, and all that was good. Probably one of our biggest mistakes, unfortunately, was the driver behind this. We watched... what was the movie, Lindsay? Do you remember?
Was it Noah? It was called Noah,
That's right,
with Russell Crowe?
Yeah, Noah with Russell Crowe several years ago. And I came up with the idea of pretending that we had an interview with Noah.
We're all cringing right now.
Basically doing a 3-minute skit of me interviewing this pretend Noah on his pretend ark, and it took us about 3 hours to prepare for about a 2-minute skit. And that episode went for an hour and a half. Immediately after that, Caroline, this is still when Caroline was unwell with Frankie. Immediately after that, Caroline came back.
Yes.
So you're saying no Noah skits on Catholics of Oz, huh?
I haven't been allowed to do any more skits. I did have plans for doing one of Moses, because that was in the same year I got shouted down.
Oh dear.
No more.
There are so many biblical figures too.
With iPhones held up with gravel noises of footsteps to make it sound like we were walking towards the ship, and early days.
It's all coming out. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's fair to say, in summary, that every single mistake you could make as a podcaster, we probably made.
Oh. That's how you learn, I guess. It almost sounds like early radio, where you hear stories of, at least here in the United States, when radio was first being developed, how they'd have, real practical sound effects where like thunder was like a piece of sheet metal being shaken, so it would make that kind of that crackling, that thunder sound and stuff like that. So kind of same ideas.
Not too far off that, yeah.
That's all the fun, though. I mean, that's the great thing about podcasting. We can do stuff like that. Sometimes we can be even a little bit silly once in a while.
Yes, and we're good at that.
Given we had no oversight as well, it was probably a little gave us a little, not so much freedom, but it was probably a little dangerous for us because we had no one saying this is a bad idea. Let's do something more sensible.
Yeah.
Well, sometimes.
And so, obviously, going through all those sort of trials and tribulations, if you like, in doing podcasting, and then obviously now with Catholics Advice, we've got a lot more, not so much oversight. We sort of given a free rein, but we sort of suggest these are the subjects we want to cover. If we got what might be a controversial topic, we can run it by Dom, and he'll say yes, cover that, or don't, or vice versa.
Sure.
So that's where we are sort of now.
Well, very good. So, are there any, as you've been going through this Catholic Cause, are there anything that you've come up with that you really enjoyed discussing? Like you look back in an episode and go, "Boy, that was a good episode," and I really enjoyed that topic.
I think for me, I really like we have a segment that we call Something Personal. And what we do is we talk about ourselves. So I know that when we're originally talking about the podcast, we thought, we can talk about this topic. We'll talk about, people who are doing things that are really good with their faith. And, we've got this Faith Beyond Borders, Caroline's passion for, science. Sometimes we talk about apps and technology. And I thought we need a personal touch as well. And so we, every so often, when something has happened in our lives that we think that's worth sharing, especially the idea of sharing it really is for the sake of anyone who's listening, because they might have similar experiences in their lives. And I know sometimes even I've benefited from listening to podcasts where people talk about their lives, and I can say I can relate to that. It's good to know there's someone else who has something else going on in their lives that's similar to me, and think about how they got through it and how they might have resolved it, or how they're dealing with it as they still go through it. So the Something Personal one has been really good because I've been able to, in a way, I guess, get things off my chest, publicly. It's not a place to rant, but it's just a place to share my life. And Caroline and Jared have had their own, something personal topics to bring up and talk about as well. And we were just actually, before talking about maybe in a future episode, talking about raising our kids Catholic, what's worked and what doesn't work. So I think that for me has been really good. And Caroline and I did an episode, I think it was about 2 episodes ago, where we talked about the death of our grandmother, and then Caroline, also an auntie on her husband's side as well. We had these deaths and funerals all within the space of a couple of weeks, and
wow.
And our learning from it though was about what we can learn from death in terms of our faith, and it was actually a really positive discussion, and we were kind of amazed about how, although they're sad things that have happened, the idea that death brought people together, it opened up faith discussions with people in our families who are not really people of faith as well. So it gave us those opportunities. And so we were talking about how, death in and of itself can actually be an evangelizing moment, not because we turn it into one, but simply because of of what it is, and because it gets people's minds thinking about things beyond themselves. And also I talked to Caroline about how another, great uncle of ours who died a few years ago, our parish priest did the last rites for him. And for most of the family that were in that hospital room, they weren't church-going people. But when our priest came and did this last rites, it really changed the mood of the room. And there were people in that room who I can safely say don't go to church. And when our priest started praying the Hail Mary, there were quite a few who could start praying it with him as well. So having that chance to talk about these personal moments, I think it's quite liberating, but I hope it's also liberating for other people as well. And, Caroline and I were talking about after that episode, just about how much we actually enjoyed having that chat and how uplifting it was. Strangely enough, talking about death, but then talking about the hope and the redemption that comes along with it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, obviously my favorite thing to talk about is science and space. And I think...
I wouldn't have guessed that.
No. How I was just watching a SpaceX live presentation.
The disclaimer is as we're recording this on Saturday night here in the United States, Sunday over in Australia, it's SpaceX is doing their press briefing, or they're showing off the new spaceship that the interplanetary spaceship that they're planning on launching someday.
That's right. So we timed it well, but that's okay. I can watch it later. It's a great thing about YouTube. But I think the highlight for me is when I took over our podcast, basically, and I spoke about the Apollo anniversary. I had so much fun really researching that because, I knew about it, but I didn't know a lot about it. We watched documentaries growing up here and there, but I guess, YouTube wasn't around when I was a child, and, I didn't have a lot of access to all that information. So really going into depth, reading and watching episodes about, pre-moon landing and all of that kind of thing was so much fun for me. And I just was really happy and thrilled to be able to have the opportunity to really talk about it. And I think my passion just took over, and I just spoke probably way too long about it, but I hope it was interesting for everyone else as it was for me to share, So for me, that was. And Father Corey, when you mentioned me in your podcast in the Let's Talk, I thought, oh my goodness, you listened. For me, it was so exciting that, that you enjoyed listening to me speak about, the moon landing on our podcast. So that was a whole lot of fun.
Well, it was such a great coincidence because I'd listened to that episode on Sunday, and then 2 days later, or the next day, Monday, is when we did the episode on Apollo 11 and had Scott Pook from down there in Australia. Just happened to be here. But I think we mentioned it in the episode, but it was going to be myself, Shelley Kelly, and Mac Barron. Oh, by the way, Shelley knew this guy who was in the United States with to celebrate Apollo 11 and all that. Yeah. It turned out to be Scott Pook, and he was just absolutely brilliant. Yeah. It was great. It was just such a great episode.
Yes. That was a really fun episode, and I'm hoping that I can actually have him on our show soon too. So we've been in contact, and we just have to organize when we can get that done. So so through you, I was able to make a contact there too, which is great.
That's great.
That's my favorite so far this year.
So that's going to be your geek out episode, is when you guys get them on.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, totally. I don't know how much, actual, Catholicism we'll be speaking about on that episode. There'll be a lot of space. I can guarantee that. Yeah.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah. Well, I suppose for me, one of the things I've really enjoyed more so especially with the Catholics of Oz podcast than our previous ones, is the amount of different stories on our Faith Beyond Borders segments. A lot of the time, I'm not the one who comes up with the topics, so I'm finding about all these almost niche articles and items of interest, and it's things you're never going to see on the headlines of your mainstream sources. A Catholic teacher winning a teacher's prize because it was voted for by students, for all the way from Africa.
Yes,
that's right.
As well as there's a whole bunch of different topics. Like every time there's something new, and the one we're talking about is robotics and the priesthood. I'm really looking forward to digging into that one, which will be in a future episode. Spoiler alert. Things like that you're just never going to see. It's almost we're not an alternate news source, but it's really interesting to see what a lot of the I suppose the different things that come out that are Catholic that are just hidden because there's no alternate reporting on them or no mainstream reporting on them, and just being able to first of all be exposed to them and then get down to looking through them and even potentially having an opinion on them. I really enjoy that side of doing our podcast, and we usually have a Faith Beyond Borders, whether it's in Australia, America, we've got the whole world, and there's news all over the place if we just, if we find it.
That's great.
Yeah, and one of the things as well, Father, if I could just quickly, Jared and I have talked a lot about how there are a lot of things that you talk about on Let's Talk that we're also talking about because they're happening in Australia. So you did an episode a couple of months ago about the seal of confession and laws about that. And that actually was happening here in Australia as well. And we'd also done one about laws here in the state of Victoria about making priests mandated reporters that they would have to report something that they heard in the seal of confession if it was about child abuse. So we actually really appreciated that we'd done our episode from our lay perspective, and then we heard you and I think it was Father Chip talking from a priestly perspective as well. So I actually like that sometimes we have these complementary topics, even though you're talking about it as it's happening in the United States, but it's there are things happening here in Australia which are very similar. So hearing those two similar topics and different perspectives has been really good for us as well, I think.
Yeah, well, that's the great thing. Of course, you can talk about these issues or anything that's going on from more the Australian perspective, and I think we know that our cultures are very similar because we're both the United States and Australia were originally colonies of Great Britain, at least as they are today, and we've got a lot of the same issues that we deal with and a lot of the same insights. But there's also ways that we do differ in our outlook as well. So it's interesting to hear that from you guys, and that actually kind of to transition over. One thing I know you do talk about on your podcast is the church in Australia. The institutional church, if you want to do that, but of course you can't separate the institutional church from the members. The church is the church, and the institution and the members are part of the same church. What do you think? And I know if you go and listen to your podcast, you talk about this quite a bit, but what do you think is the state of the church in Australia?
It's a question that has
big question,
lots of answers. Yeah, there are a lot of things you could say, because we can talk about, for example, the wounded Australian church in the sense that I guess again, same thing with the United States. You'd be hearing a lot of this. I see news from different states about the the child abuse, all the history that's coming up, and so you could talk about that wounded side of the church, because it certainly is there. For example, the three of us, our local parish that we go to has a history, unfortunately, with this as well.
It's not good.
So we're very much aware and and a bit sensitive towards hearing news about it as well. Since all the news and all the things that have been revealed have come out, there's been a Royal Commission in Australia, and that has opened up, I guess, a lot more stories, which I think has been a good thing to happen. I think maybe for the sake of the church, it needs to happen so that we can address the issue, move on towards healing, so that we can go forward as Catholics and not be held down about it. So definitely the wounded church is there, but I would also say the hopeful church exists too. I would say from some of the things that I've seen our church try and do in Australia, there is certainly a church that's very much alive. One of the things that I've done I used to be a youth group leader at my local parish until a couple of years ago when our second son was born. But before that, I'd be taking my youth group to the Australian Catholic Youth Festival, which is a festival that occurs every 2 years, and it happens in a different state in Australia, and it's for any young Catholics from the age of, I think it's year 9, so that's about 14, 15, up to, I think it's about 35 or so. But the whole idea is to gather young Catholics together and to give them workshops and to help them with their faith. And it's a massive event. It's a very uplifting. It's like a World Youth Day, but in Australia.
Nice.
And it's an amazing event, and that's a very vibrant, very alive church as well. And there are other signs that our church is alive and full of hope. So while we have the wounds that we deal with, there's also a church that's trying to move forward. We actually have a plenary council happening at the moment as well, which I think next year we'll start to produce some results and we'll start hearing from it. But the Australian Catholic bishops, in the wake of the Royal Commission, in the wake of growing secularism, all the issues that we see in Australian society, they called this council to renew the church, basically. And I know that renew the church can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people because there's a lot of different contributions that were made. But one of the main things really is how can we be the voice of the church? That they say the voice of Jesus. How can we be the voice of Jesus in 21st century Australia? And I think that's a sign of hope for me as well, because I think our our bishops, by and large, do a pretty good job of trying to share the faith. And, they're the ones who say yes to these youth festivals and yes to these other big events. So I think, like I said, I think we've got our wounds and we have to deal with those, and we can't pretend they don't exist. And sometimes they can hurt. But I think at the same time, like I said, there's a hope, and it's a growing hope. And I hope that this plenary council will actually supercharge the church a little bit more and help us be a more effective and a much more bolder voice in our society.
Mm-hmm. Sure, absolutely.
Yeah.
Caroline, Jerry, did I leave anything for you?
It's going to be hard to add, man. Going to be hard to add much to that.
I think you summed it up pretty well. But I mean, I think also I agree with the hopeful church. It is, I have to say, it is pretty difficult to be a Catholic in Australia. I mean, majority of people are not Catholic, especially, in the workplace. People kind of, I've had it where people scoff at me, I tell them I'm Catholic and they'll try and, make a comment and try and lure me into some kind of discussion where they can prove me wrong or whatever, but I don't bite, I'm, I just kind of, okay, that's your problem. But if they really want to talk, I'm happy to talk. But, and listening to, I listen to the ABC news radio in the morning, and you have all these people calling in the morning complaining, the Catholic Church, But I think I see a lot of hope in our, especially our new bishop, Archbishop Comensoli. He's so into, really reaching out to us and trying to see how he can help us and how he can kind of reconnect the hierarchy with the people. And, how can we work together and how can we really make this what Jesus intended, and also, people like, we've got Father Rob Galea here who, he's, a musician, he writes books. He really tries to get the message of Jesus out there in his own way, with his music and his enthusiasm, and also down to our own parish priest. We've changed parish priests recently because our dear Father Michael, who we used to have, he's retired recently, and now we have new, young Father Michael. Can see my quotation marks on it. But he's also Father Michael, and he's so enthusiastic and lovely, so, and really engaging with us. He takes the time to say hello to us after Mass. He waits outside and shakes our hand, and, he's always there for us. So that's the kind of hope I see in the church now, and that kind of, it just really encourages you, to see that, it's going to be okay. We just keep on with it, keep fighting, and, the bad will go away eventually, and we can recover, and we can be better than we were before, and that's what I'm feeling that's going to happen. Yeah.
Very awesome.
I think it's really, in Australia, I think the church is really in a transition. It's like what you said, Lindsay, before with the plenary council, and I think a lot of it's sort of not waiting on that, but I feel like it's impossible to think there'll be no change after the plenary council. Whether it's change that people want, of course, there's going to be people that are unsatisfied because it wasn't changed enough or it was changed too much, but there will be change in there. What I suppose I'm going to side now with Caroline and say yes, there is hope, because there is. There's all this new media. We've been involved in it as well. There's all these, it's much easier to access Catholic content than it might have used to be in the past. And I think all of us on this show, we're all a part of that. We're all a part of being able to evangelize. So, no matter what happens with this plenary council, it doesn't change the fact that 2019 years ago, there was a little boy that was born in a stable, and 33 years later, he was nailed to a cross, and a couple of days after, 3 days after that, he rose from the dead. And the underlying story behind it, nothing changed from that. And I think that's what is a constant for me, is that whatever else changes in our outside world, when we walk out the door, nothing has changed from that history, from that past, that, I'm going to talk myself into a corner there, but nothing changes from that past. Yeah. And I think that for me gives me the most hope, that whatever else changes on the outside, it's still the same inside.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's a great outlook. Now, one thing you kind of mentioned, Carolyn, was talking with people who aren't Catholic, and as I understand, again, being an outsider to Australian culture, but that Australia is much more secular even than the United States. The United States, we're considered a secular culture, but that Australia is even more so. Is that, would you agree with that assessment? Or
I think being out in the world, every day, obviously working and having friends who are not Catholic and that kind of thing, I really do feel that. You just have to watch the news or listen to the radio, and everybody's, pro euthanasia, pro abortion, pro, all these, things that we just can't understand. Why do you want to introduce these? Why do you want to stand up for these things, when it's not healthy for people? Our standpoint from the, being a Catholic is that it's not that we want to go against people because, we don't care for them. It's actually because we really do care for them and we want the best for them, but they see us. It's like them and us. It really feels like that sometimes. It's like they feel like we want to stop them doing what they want to do. So it's like, no, like it feels like, people having tantrums. No, I want to do it. It's not fair. If I want to do it, I should be able to do it, and, and I really feel it. It is like that a lot of the time. And so I think having views that are not the same as the everyday population, because most people are pro-abortion. It's a woman's right, woman's choice. She should be able to do what she wants with her own body, that kind of thing. And why can't I choose when I want to die, and all that kind of thing. It's like, we're not trying to stop you from doing what you want to do, but we're trying to love you and care for you, and maybe let's look at some alternatives that will be better for you, an outcome that will be much better for you. And so that is a pretty hard point to get across to people when they just have their opinion and that's it, and they don't actually really want to listen to what you have to say as a Catholic. So, and sometimes it feels like you can't really say what you truly want to say. It takes a lot of courage to say, no, I don't think women should be able to have abortions, or I don't think you should be able to, take your own life when you're suffering, and so it does take a lot of courage. Like I mentioned, I've had a few offhanded comments directed my way, especially at work. And I mean, I have been able to sometimes come up with something that makes them, just stop in their tracks and think. But it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. But we persevere, and I am quite adamant to keep on showing that yes, I'm a Catholic and this is what I believe in, and I'm not going to change just because I'm going to conform to society's, mainstream society's views. So, yeah.
Well, that was very good.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
Lindsay or Jerry, anything you want to share on that?
I think the thing is, like Caroline was saying, we do have, I guess, quite a strong opposition in society. I remember when the euthanasia laws in Victoria were proposed, the Premier of Victoria, his words were, and he's a Catholic too. He said basically, if anyone opposes these laws, they should just get out of the way. And it's like, whoops, okay. So all right. So having said that, there is that opposition, and Caroline's absolutely correct. But I think, like Jerry said before, really, our story hasn't changed, and our story can be expressed in so many ways. And I think one thing that's pretty strong about Australia is that people are open to meaning here. And I think if they can, when they're being reflective, when those opportunities to be reflective come around, I think they are open to thinking about the higher things, the Christian story, the idea that it has hope when all the other things that they've tried haven't given them the hope that they promised. It hasn't been what they were looking for. And I think that story of Christ and that story of hope and the witness of our own lives and the idea that, like Caroline said, that we're not going to change our minds about certain things because that's where the wave is going of popular opinion is going. I think people see that uniqueness, and I think it does it does maybe open their hearts and their minds to thinking maybe there is another way. And so, and even with our podcasting, that's what we're trying to do. We're just trying to say we live regular lives, we live in the world like everyone else, but we do it this way because we think the message of Christ is a message of hope. And it does offer a way forward that's more liberating than anything else that's out there. And those are the conversations we have with people when the opportunity comes up. But I think those natural moments for those conversations do happen. And like I said, I think it's because people tend to be open to meaning, like the idea of that there are things that are beyond ourselves. I'm a high school teacher, and often when I talk about, faith in a religious education class, students will always say, I think there's something out there, but I don't know what it is. It's very much St. Paul talking to the Greeks and the unknown God in a sense, and then him saying, oh, it's this one. And so when I hear that, for example, with students, I put that to the test and I say, well, who's been around? What's been around in history that's tried to offer answers, and who seems to offer the most compelling answer, the most consistent answer? And you can talk about, the person of Jesus being a real historical person who existed as opposed to a legend. And so if this was a real person and if what he talked about, actually makes sense, if it's real, then maybe this is answering that question of who that force that you believe out, that exists out there might actually be. And it's a journey that everyone's on. We spoke about Bill Hayden, who was an Australian politician, Labor Party politician, who was an atheist for his whole career, he's still alive now, but in his older age, he's come across to our side. He's found Jesus and he's become a Catholic and he's received the sacraments, and it's an awesome, amazing story. But if a really hard atheist can do it, then anyone can do it.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah, very good. And I suppose one last thing I might put for myself is that no matter what people say, do, or come up with that seems like such a bad idea or is so distant from our Catholic faith, no matter what, they're still a child of God. As strange as it might seem, looking at some of them, might say, "You really? You're a child of God?" But they really are. And it's always, it's hard. It's almost impossible for me, but it's hard to remember that is the case. That they are also given the same benefits and potential fruit and outcome as we do. They're just like us. I'm not better because I'm a Catholic. I don't get any special. I'm not given any special grace or anything. Okay, I'm not given any head start just because I'm a Catholic. I have to earn it, and maybe I'll get ahead in a way that way. But I'm born just like them as a child of God, and that doesn't change.
Oh, very good,
lovely.
So any kind of last thoughts we kind of wrap up before we go on to our break and then picks of the week? Any kind of last thoughts any of you would like to throw out there?
I think I'm pretty good. What about you guys?
Got it all off my chest.
I got the last word, so I can be happy.
There you go. Yeah, of course, you got plenty of last thoughts or plenty of thoughts you could have on your own podcast. So all the better, gives people an excuse to go listen to what you have to say there. Yeah. And I have to kind of close off this segment by saying I'm very jealous of that view behind you right now, Lindsay.
Because, right, yes.
Because you've got, I see sunny and trees are, they're budded out and everything, and you got leaves. We're having our first snowstorm of the season right now.
Oh, no.
So wow. You guys sent all your winter weather back up this way. You could have kept it down there.
No. I'm over winter. I've had enough of winter.
I think we talked about that on a podcast, that we had enough of winter now. We need that warm weather.
Yeah.
But Father, I have to say my camera is pointing slightly upwards because I don't want you to see my uncut grass behind me in the front lawn either.
Hey, that's right. Mine wasn't cut either. It's because the snow came before I could get out there and do it. So I understand. Well, very good. Well, we can go ahead and take a quick break here. And once again, I want to thank everyone for listening to Let's Talk. And Catholics of Oz and Secrets of Doctor Who and Secrets of Star Trek and all our SQPN community podcasts. We enjoy putting them on. We enjoy having people listen to them and to give us feedback and everything. So we greatly appreciate everyone listening. Please do share our podcast. We want people to hear what we have to say here at SQPN, all of our different shows. We want people to hear it. We want people to join in the conversation. So please do share them. Share them on Facebook. You can find our podcast, our page SQPN on Facebook. We've got an SQPN page on YouTube where you can listen to our episodes. You can give them thumbs up, of course, on YouTube, and we appreciate that. You can give them likes on Facebook. We greatly appreciate that. If you listen to us through a podcast app such as Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, Stitcher, and so on, please do leave a review if that platform allows for it. That definitely helps for our shows to be found by others. Also, if you're not aware, you can find all of our episodes on Spotify. All our different shows are on Spotify, where if you use that to listen to music and podcasts, you can find us there as well. So, and again, please share with others. If you enjoy what we're doing, we hope that you will support us as well. You know, of course, like any organization, we need all the help we can get. We need financial help to keep the shows coming. You know, it is nice being on the internet that our costs aren't quite the same as like a real radio station, but we still have costs that we have to do. We still have a website we have to run. We still have Dom does collect a salary because he is a full-time employee of SQPN. Keep things going, keep things organized, keeping us all in line. Isn't that right, guys?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, absolutely.
And he does a good job of it, so we want to keep him in that job for a long time to come. So please do join us at our Patreon campaign. You can find a link to that at sqpn.com/give. If you sign up with our Patreon campaign, you can be a patron of SQPN and give us some monthly support. And we do have some gifts that we do send out if you join in on different levels of that campaign. This week, I'd like to thank Adam R., James D., Steve S., Mitchell R., and Pat S. Thank you, and all of our Patreon supporters. We greatly appreciate the help that you give us, and it does help us keep these shows on the air. Well, now we'll go on to our picks, and which of you would like to go first?
I'll go first. Okay.
Come on, Caroline.
Yes.
Ladies
I
first.
want to.
There we go, ladies first.
Come on.
Okay, here we go. No surprise. Okay. My pick of the week is the NASA app on my phone. Okay. So, surprise. So on this app, it's really good. So they have and the NASA TV channel on the app where you can watch so many various types of programs that they present. So they'll have conferences, about the latest missions or developments that are happening, latest findings that, if they've just discovered something, you can watch that as they present it. Interviews with the astronauts up in the space station, which is always really fun to watch, to get their perspective of what's going on at the space station at the time. They've got, the news section that you can read, what's happening, latest developments that you can just read about. They've got a list of all the missions that they're undertaking, and there's a whole long list. There's so many there. It's really fun to read through those. And one of the really nice things they have too is a live feed from the International Space Station that's always pointed at the Earth. And it's just so calming just to watch, if you ever want to just have some meditation time, thinking about nothing but looking at something beautiful, what better to look at than a view of our beautiful planet. So I really enjoy watching that, just beautiful spinning of the Earth, looking at the countries, the cloud formations and everything else. So that is my pick of the week.
Oh, excellent. Sounds like a great one. I've watched of course, a lot of the cable networks here in United States have the NASA TV on as one of the channels, because of course it's free to them. NASA wants this to get out there, so it is nice to watch.
Yeah.
So
I wish we had that here. Oh man.
Yeah.
But anyway, I can watch it through the app. So.
Well, I suppose they figure, since our tax dollars are paying for it, that we should actually be able to find out what's going on, right?
I agree. Exactly. Yeah.
Sounds fair.
Yeah. Jerry, what do you have for a pick this week?
All right, I'll go. So I've got a group. Their name is Envision Hands, envision.org.au. They're undertaking a project to create 100 bespoke aids, so prosthetic hands, out of bottle caps using 3D printers. So how it works is that all of us, now this is an Australian organisation, but they are part of a worldwide, which I'll go into in a second. But so this is a bit focused on Australian, bit of an Australian pick, that Envision Hands have all these drop-off places all around Australia. You drop off the bottle cap lids of your milk bottles and things like that. At these drop-off points, they then get fed into a machine which gets the chemical part. I'm not a chemist, I don't know what the part is. A special part that is used it's the same material as what's used to create prosthetic hands, and they're then going to donate it to those people in need. So they're part of the global movement called enablingthefuture.org. There's actually 85 volunteers in America, so it's not just Australia. I had thought originally when I found this pic that it was just going to be an Australian one. But I suppose, especially for our Australian listeners, because we're doing this in our parish, and I've seen it in a lot of other churches as well, that it's basically Envision Hands, where you just all that's required of us is to not throw our bottle caps in the recycling bin and hand them in here. And, give a kid or an adult, give someone who needs it a prosthetic hand.
Excellent. That sounds really cool. Yeah, we'll have a link to their website where you can find out more about it in the show notes. Definitely sounds like one worth doing. And Lindsay, what do you have for a pick?
So, at the risk of this being a shameless plug for the Catholics of Oz, in one of our earlier episodes, Caroline mentioned him before. We interviewed Father Rob Gallia, who's He's a Maltese priest who works in the Diocese of Sandhurst here in Victoria. And his ministry is amazing. And I really, really want to plug him today because of the great work he does in sharing his Catholic faith. And I think he's been one of the inspirations for us in terms of that idea of boldness. So Father Rob, his ministry is all kinds of things. So, for example, he has a YouTube channel to start with if people want to find out more about him. And he's a musician, and his musical style is all kinds of things. So he's got the traditional, where he's got a sung version of the novena. I forget which novena is it, Caroline?
The Chaplet of Divine Mercy. Yes.
That's the one. Yes. Thank you, the Chaplet of Divine Mercy. So the traditional, but he also does pop music as well. He writes his own pop music. So he's got music for everyone, and I think his ministry is really good because, firstly, it's good for my own faith in the way that he puts faith content into his songs, but it's great for children too. Kids love. I've got to say, our own kids love the work that he does. So he's a great one to share in terms of things that you have on YouTube. We have him on our TV on YouTube in the evening sometimes, and just sitting there listening and singing along with him. But he's great for that. But he is a priest with a story too. He talks about how he used to be part of a gang when he was young, growing up in Malta. He used to steal. He used to tell lies about people. People got beaten up because of things that he had done. He used to, he was into underage drinking, all these things. And if there was anyone that you would think that God would have trouble turning into a Catholic priest, it would be this guy. So the turnaround in his life is amazing. And he's got a book, so I might make that the main plug. He has a book called Breakthrough. And this book is basically his story. So he talks about his early life and about the life that he led when he was younger. But then he talks about his conversion to God and then what's happened since. And his ministry has been amazing. He was on the Australian X Factor as he auditioned as a contestant, and he got through, and he would have kept going, except that obviously his ministry as a priest, wouldn't fit with that schedule. And also he has an international schedule as well. He's traveled to the United States, to Canada, to India, to other parts of the world where he does concerts and talks as well. So basically, the ministry of Father Rob Gallia is my pick. I should also mention at World Youth Day this year, because you did an episode on World Youth Day earlier this year as well, Father Corey. Father Rob was one of the people who sang for the Pope, over 1 million people as well, on the night when they do the Eucharistic adoration, the vigil. So he had one of the songs, like he had a slot there doing that, and that was the reason why we ended up interviewing. So Father Rob Gallia is my pick of the week. Excellent. And I've already written down in my notes to link to the Catholics of Oz episode interviewing him, so it'll be a good place to start from. So excellent.
My pick is actually it's a program we're doing, of course, here in the United States because it is fall. It's going into schools. Your school has started and everything here. We started our religious ed program, and I'm helping out with the high school youth this year. And so we're doing a program that comes from Augustine Institute. And of course, we've promoted the Formed program many times here on Let's Talk. But what I want to talk about, what we're doing this year, it's called Why Disciple Symbolon. So if you're familiar with the Symbolon program that they've done, they've taken that and they've made it more or broken it and set it up for its more high school level. Symbolon is a great resource for learning about the faith, for learning about the creed, learning about what we believe and how to live it. Well, they've taken that now, they've made it more like a high school level where it's the same material, it's the same videos and everything, but just kind of made it a bit simpler for a high school level. And it's a great program. We're doing it this year. We started it and, it talks about the journey. First one is about the journey, journeying through the creed, journeying through our faith. So that's what we're doing this year. And I really like it. I think it's a great program. And I hope the kids get a lot out of it. I hope it really helps them grow in their faith and recognize that their faith is a journey. So again, my pick this week is Why Disciple Symbolon. You can find that on Formed. You can also find it through the Augustine Institute as well if you don't use the Formed program. I don't know. Is Formed available over in Australia? I don't know if that's just the United States.
I've not heard of it. There are similar programs, I think, but I haven't heard of the Formed one specifically.
Okay,
it's possible someone's using it, but I haven't come across it.
Yeah, I didn't know, like I said, if it was international or if it's just here in the United States or here in North America right now. But if it is available in Australia, it's formed.org. It's very much worth checking out. Like I said, but I don't know. Of course, when you're talking international, you're talking copyright issues and legal issues. And yeah, that makes it all the more fun.
Look, if you don't tell anyone, we won't, Father.
Yeah, exactly. So, well, this was fantastic to have the three of you on. Where can people find you? Gee, I wonder what you're going to say.
Well, if they're interested in our podcast, Catholics of Oz, they should find us. They can find us at sqpn.com/Oz, or it's spelled OZ or OZ for some people. So, so that's the first port of call. We also have our own Facebook page, which is facebook.com. I think it's /Catholics of Oz. I hope that's correct. But certainly you can type in Catholics of Oz on Facebook and find us there. And then personally, Lindsay Sant on Facebook, if anyone would like to link up with me and talk about the podcast or anything else, I'm always happy to talk to any of our listeners.
Yep.
How about yourself, Caroline?
Yeah, well, I can be found at all the same places. I'm on Twitter as well. I think it's Caroline Knight. Anyway, if you type it in, I'm sure you'll find it. And yeah, I'm also on Facebook, Caroline Knight. There's probably 1 million of us, but that's all right. Yeah, just look us up and yeah, it'd be great to connect with everyone.
Excellent. And Jerry?
Yeah, and I'm just at the Catholics of Oz. I've listened to too many Secrets of Tech where they talk about bad things about Facebook and I get scared away. But, obviously I'm there available at Catholics of Oz, on the website as well.
Well, admittedly, you'll have to listen to this past week's Secrets of Tech to find out what I really think about Facebook and Twitter and all those anyways. But I am Father Corey Stika. You can find me on my website where I post my homilies, frcorey.org. You can find me on Facebook. Father Corey Stika is my page. Twitter, my Twitter handle is frcorey.stika. I hope if you enjoy this episode, if you want to give us feedback of this episode or any episode of Let's Talk, you can send that feedback to letstalk@sqpn.com. Again, you can go to the SQPN Facebook page and leave feedback there, or YouTube as well. We can get it through any of those channels. So please do send us feedback. We definitely want to hear what you have to say about these topics. Thank you very much for listening, and God bless.